Everyone. My name is Karen Reynes. I'm the Executive Director for NAMI Central Texas, and I am so delighted this evening to bring you Mind Matters at Home. Our topic is incredibly important right now. As we know, there's a great deal of anxiety as everyone's getting ready to go back to school and figuring out how do we do this regardless of what your school is doing. How do we do this? And we know there's a lot of anxiety, and so we're so excited to bring back Meagan Butler, who was here earlier with us this summer to talk about emotional regulation. And she's being joined by Wanda Montemayor, who is also with AISD. And so together, the two of them have a wonderful evening planned for us of lots of just great, concrete, simple tools that you can use to manage that back to school anxiety. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to the two of you and listen along. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Meagan Butler. It's so nice to see you all here. We're so excited to be here today. So I'm a counseling coordinator with Austin ISD, and I support 230 school counselors. And then we've got Wanda over here, and you can see she's in an art zone right now. Wanda, tell us a little about you.
So I am the wellness counselor at O'Henry Middle School, and then I also work in private practice, working a lot with teenagers and middle schoolers and running groups to help support them.
Awesome. And so today, the topic that was brought to us was managing back to school anxiety. And we're excited to just jump right in with you. We like our sessions to be really interactive, so feel free to jump in the chat, express yourself, share your own insights as we move through some activities together. Okay, so just get in there. All right, so let's do this. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. All right. Okay, so we are managing back to school anxiety, and we're going to go through the following things together. We're going to start with a little bit of neuroscience. We always like to do a little brain time. In Austin ISD, all of our counselors receive a lot of brain training. Then we're going to go into our top 7 strategies for brain regulation. Next is a little set of skills called Check Your Meds. Stands for mindfulness, exercise, diet, sleep. We'll get into that. And then finally, we know a lot of families are having these conversations about COVID worries, right? They're stressed. There's a lot of things that are being talked about. There's a lot of fears. So we're going to talk about how do you have that conversation with your child or with your spouse or with yourself even. So let's get into it.
Tunnel vision. We know that when someone is flooded, what happens to their brains is they just go straight into this little tunnel. And so a lot of the 7 strategies are going to help you kind of break free from that possibility. And but it's always good to keep in mind that when your kid or teen is flooded, they're not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah. And so sometimes we'll see like fight, flight, freeze behaviors when people are anxious. They'll kind of get in this tunnel vision and they'll have, running away behaviors or frozen behaviors. I just read this study the other day. It was just released by the CDC, and it was showing some recent data about anxiety. And so it talked about how last year, this time of year, it was about 1 in 12 people showed symptoms of anxiety. This year, this time, we're now up to 1 in 3. So this is very, very common. And so some people are like, wow, that's so much anxiety. And I think this is part of the reason why. This is a slide that comes from the neurosequential model, Dr. Bruce Perry. He's done a lot of work with Austin ISD. And he talks about how different stress can lead to different outcomes. So stress in itself is not good or bad. Stress can actually lead to growth, right? In school, sometimes we put a little bit of stress on kids. We say, practice these math problems that are really hard, and their brains grow. And that's a predictable, moderate stress, right? And so then they build a stress tolerance to that. Right now, with COVID and this pandemic, we're seeing the unpredictable, the extreme, the prolonged stress. And we're seeing that over and over. When is school starting? Who's going to be there? What are the rules for school? There's so many unpredictable things happening. and it's unexpected. And so we're having this strong stress reaction collectively. And so that's why today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the brain under stress and what we can do. So Dan Siegel has this concept, and we love this. It's called upstairs brain and downstairs brain. So when we think about our brains, we've got kind of a lower part of our brain. If you can just tap the base of your neck right here, this is your brain stem, okay? And then up here, this is our cortex. If you can tap your forehead, that's your cortex. And so sometimes we're in our downstairs brain, we're in our survival reptilian brain, and that's where fight or flight happens, that survival instinct. We prepare our muscles to fight. We prepare our muscles to run, our breathing, our heart rate. That's all downstairs brain. Then we've got upstairs brain, which we need in school because we're thinking, we're problem solving, logic. It's also where we get some of that body control and empathy and feelings, right? So this is just a good concept. When we were talking with kids or even think about ourselves, a lot of times we say, when that happened, were you in your downstairs brain or your upstairs brain, right? We are kind of asked, where were you in your brain when that thing happened? Oftentimes when we see really explosive behaviors, it's the downstairs brain. So let's get a little bit more brain science before we do the techniques. So this is awesome. This comes from the neurosequential model. This is a therapeutic team from Beacon House. The key point here is that children's brains, all of our brains, because we were all once children, develop from the bottom up and the inside out. So if you look at this drawing, you see this yellow part, right? And that's that brain stem, and it's also the inside of the brain. So it's the inside of the brain, and that's that survival instinct. Then there's a little shell around it that's green. That's the limbic. And that's feelings and emotions and connections and relationships. And that's that relational part of the brain. And then finally, the green cortex. So that's thinking, learning, you know, inhibition, right? Sometimes teenagers do things that are really impulsive. And we go, what were you thinking? The answer is, that part of my brain's not developed yet. And so we keep developing this till we're 25 or 30, right? So we've got our brains, they're all still developing, which is why kids need to help lean on adults, because we need to help them problem solve because their brains are not fully developed. So when we're talking through today, we're talking about what do you do knowing this is how brains develop. And the answer that we'll go back to at the end is regulate, relate, reason, okay? In that order. What we do is we follow the same pattern of the brain when we're interacting with kids. We regulate the brainstem first. You see at the bottom of that triangle, we regulate them. We help calm them down. We co-regulate, meaning we do it with them. We help them calm down together. Then we relate, we connect, right? We connect with that child through an attuned relationship. We mirror them. Then, and only then, do we problem solve and reason and have those problem solving conversations. It's gotta be in that order. If you've ever tried to have a logical conversation with someone that's crying, hyperventilating, and stressed, they don't remember anything. They're not processing words. That part of their brain is not connected to the rest of their brain. So knowing this, regulate, relate, reason, that's going to be a theme that we talk about throughout tonight, okay? Regulate, relate, reason. If you only take away 3 words from tonight, take those 3 words, okay? In that order. All right, Wanda, we're about to get into some regulation.
Yeah, I love this part. So remembering that regulation is a skill. And the way that your child has learned to regulate is by you, by co-regulation. That is how we first learn how to calm our bodies down. So that's what we're going to give you guys some tips on with today. So top 7 strategies.
All right, number 1 is you, Wanda. What are we going to do?
So moving our bodies. The more that we move our body and we discharge and we do different things, it's going to feel awesome. So we're going to actually do it together. And our favorite thing to say is notice what you notice. So the first thing we're going to do is, actually, I have to get out of chair for this. How many of us have been sitting down all day, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to do a heart and chest opener where you turn to the side and you just stretch it out. We've been hunched over our computers all day long and just give a good deep stretch. with a good breath.
Oh, that feels great.
Yes. Yes, and if you can, even in your chair. Yeah. The other one, this one's also my favorite. Doing it until you feel good and shaking those shoulders. Whoa, what was happening in front of the computer today, right? Getting out of this place and getting into your body.
Yep, opening up that tunnel. Mm-hmm.
This one is excellent for the tunnel vision because we're going to be doing the rainbow stretch, and I'm inviting you to do it too. So putting both of your hands to the right-hand side and down low and tracking your hands the entire time. We're going to do this beautiful, deep and slow rainbow stretch. Tracking your hands all the way to the side and then back over.
So I'm looking at my hands.
You're looking at your hands the entire time, opening up that vision and stretching your body. Let's just do one more. There you go. Kind of shake it out. Notice what you notice. Like, just take a body check.
You know what I'm noticing is that my mid-back, it just feels open. I'm having a sense of openness. That's what I'm noticing.
Yeah, I just felt like everything that was kind of crunched up just released. So I'm like, woo!
Woo. And if you're watching on here and you want to add into the chat what you noticed when you did these stretches, the heart opener and the rainbow stretch, what'd you notice? Check in with your body for a sec. What are you noticing? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to keep asking you to just do this with us. You're going to just notice what you notice. So our next one is called Change the Beat. So sometimes, you know, we're school counselors, right? Right now I work in central office supporting counselors, but when I was a school counselor, one of the first things I would do regularly if I had someone who was very dysregulated, I would change the beat. So Bruce Perry says our brains are rhythmic, right? So if we want to move from high anxiety to low anxiety, we can notice the neural pathways and the rhythm of those. So right now, I'd like you to just notice when we play different beats, notice how your body feels. Our first beat we're gonna play is the soundtrack that we all grow up with, right? In utero, we all have this soundtrack. Oh, let me go back. We all have this soundtrack. Just listen. Can you hear that, Wanda?
Yep.
Okay. Just notice what you notice. What do you notice, Wanda?
What I noticed is that I felt like my heart was beating 60 to 80. Like I was all of a sudden in tune to what was happening with me.
Yeah, so you kind of were like, okay, now I'm kind of grooving to this. All right.
Yeah.
Our next one, this is a little bit more upbeat, a little uplifting. Notice what you notice. I'm noticing that I just want to sway. Just take a second. What did you notice? This is what mindfulness is, right? Just noticing what you notice. Just becoming aware of how you're feeling in that present moment. Oh, this is another one. We actually played this before we started this presentation today. This is so fun. You know, they've talked about sound as being an entry point. It's actually one of our main places where the startle reflex comes from. So when you see people jump or get anxious, sometimes with that startle, a lot of times it's due to sound. So playing sounds of nature for a lot of people are very calming. Let's just notice what you notice. Notice if this kind of nature makes you feel a little calmer. What'd you notice, Wanda?
What I noticed was I felt really tranquil. I was actually watching the water to kind of notice the other images associated with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like I was there. I'm in there, you know? So interesting. Just instantly I thought, wow. So this is a special song, this next one. This is called Marconi Union's Waitlist. They actually did some research on this song, okay? So they I think it was Mind Lab International, and they were studying people's reactions, and they were doing like heart rate monitoring and blood pressure and that kind of stuff. And this one actually had a 65% perception reduction in the people's perception of their anxiety, and a 35% reduction in the actual physiological resting state. So just listening to this song changed their blood pressure. What? Let's hear it. So I used to play this for students. If they just needed a little break, you know, they're feeling stressed before a test, I say, let's just do a little sound bath, you know, let's just dim the lights, listen to the song for 3 minutes. And honestly, it was incredible. I mean, these students would just go, wow, I feel so relaxed. I think I can do this. You know, sometimes it was almost too relaxing. Totally works. Super interesting. But sometimes we're too relaxed, right? And we need to actually go more upbeat. So sometimes the anxiety kind of freezes us, and we need to actually kind of get a little upbeat, a little energized, right? Especially in the morning. Woo! Waking up, sleep schedules with COVID, we need a little energy. So just notice how your energy changes when we listen to this. Woo! If you felt that energy change in the chat, let us know, because wow. What did you notice, Wanda?
I just felt like light, and I just wanted to move my body. I was like, whatever is going on feels great.
Isn't it funny? You put on a song and then all of a sudden your shoulders are just start grooving to the beat. And that's what happens, right? So when we want to change our states, right? We want to change states from anxiety to calmer, or energized to calmer, or low key to high energy. We can use this beat, right? So fun stuff, right? This is our next tip though. We're going to just keep on grooving. Wanda, tell us what this is about.
And real quick about the music. How many of my kids, when I'm doing a safety plan and I ask, what are 3 things that are going to help you? I would say 99% of my teens and kids put music. And just even reminding them to go to their playlist as a parent when you're helping them co-regulate, saying, do you have a song? You know, helping them change the beat and giving them some power too. So, but the next one is find a small task to complete. Having those small little wins and having that little feeling is amazing. So some fun things that also help relax, because you're using art, and we know that art is just very releasing for the brain. It's in that nonverbal place. Is that dot to dot, just something that adds color, puzzles, mandalas, coloring mandalas. There is something that is really good about completing that thing and looking at it and adding that color. Even a chapter in a book, it's something that they can visualize and say, I did it, I completed it. Gives them that good feeling of success.
Yep, it's mastery. It's a sense of control. When everything's out of control, hey, I can color. That's in my control. And I mean, for adults, this is me all day, right? This is what I'm doing to find control.
Yeah, and I tell kids, choose your jewelry box, look at your art materials, and then you just have another completion. You're just building towards that sacred space, that calm place that they can create on their own. Just a little tiny thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with anxiety, things are so kind of out of control, and this has a concrete finish, right? This is in my control. So focusing on those things that are in your control, and ask yourself, where can I find control today? Right? Even if it's just a little task that you can complete, you're going to build that sense of power, right? Feel empowered. Oh, I love number 4. We're on our top 7, brain regulation, and y'all, change temperature. This is my favorite one. Okay. So this is something that's just so interesting because it's all about that brainstem regulation, right? So what we can do is change temperature. Whenever people are super stressed, a lot of times we're going to see their temperature actually go up, right? They'll feel hot. Sometimes they'll be sweaty. A lot of times you have that heartbeat that's really fast, heavy breathing. And so they're just flooded, right? So a lot of times people are like, well, we should talk to them about it, right? Let's talk about it. People in that state are not ready to talk yet most of the time. So what we can do is just get a bowl, right? Fill it with ice water, and then just put your face in it for 30 seconds. There's not water in here, I'm just pretending. But if there was, that's what you would do. The other thing is get an ice pack, just hold it on your face and hold your breath for 20 seconds. That stimulates what we call the dive response, right? So then your body thinks that it's diving into cold water. And because of that, slows your heart rate down, slows your breathing down, and your physical functioning turns inward, and it kind of slows down as a protection for your body. And so this is just one of my favorite crisis skills that I teach students. You know, when I've got students that are feeling suicidal, they're feeling like cutting, you know, they've got a lot going on. It's very stressful for them. And they're feeling like maybe doing something that might be unsafe for them. I say, change your temperature. Just try to do a temp change. Now, for some, they were like, cold doesn't work for me. I like a warm bath. That's awesome. Just start to notice what you notice and change the temperature and notice if it helps. I like to drink cold water anytime I'm doing anything that's just a little bit stressful. I'm an ice junkie. I drink cold water. So think about how can you add a temperature change and then just check in with yourself and notice. Number 5, take a scent vacation. Y'all, this is one of my favorites yet again. We're noticing what we notice. If you've got anything in your home that you can smell, that you like to smell, find that thing, okay? I invite you to do this with me. Find that thing. For me, I found some vanilla extract, right? This is just from my baking cabinet. I'm just gonna smell it. So scents bypass the thalamus and they go straight to the smell center known as the olfactory bulb. And that is directly connected to your amygdala and hippocampus. That's your emotion feeling center of the brain. So if you want to get straight to the feeling center of your brain, smell something. And if you smell something that reminds you of happy things, like this vanilla reminds me of like birthday cakes and baking with my mom and a bunch of happy stuff, I can go straight to that happy place by smelling this, right? Straight there. So when I need a boost, I can just smell vanilla extract. Y'all, it's amazing. Like I'm instantly there in the kitchen with my mom feeling good. It's just a mood booster. So fun, just a brain hack.
Something that kids really like too are scented squishies, because if they're distressed, they have that discharge, and like this one smells like a cupcake too. And it's just really gentle, something that they could have that would be low key in any situation.
Yeah, those scenty squishies are so popular. My niece is 10 and she's got like 4 of them. She's always asking me to smell them. Oftentimes too, we get those colored markers that are scented and everybody wants to sniff, right? It's just a fun thing to do. I love that.
Bring in the play.
Oh, Wanda, this is you. Express yourself.
Yeah, this is the part where I love emotion coaching. So learning how to help your kids express themselves and express yourself safely. And also just kind of knowing how teens actually respond and talk. Remember, like, we're not going to do a lot of logic, but in grief in particular, in distress or trauma, it's got to be danced out, drawn out, moved out. Just it has to be discharged from the body. It's not going to be like, I'm feeling, sometimes we can get there, and you're going to help them identify their feelings a little bit later. But just remembering that there's all kinds of ways to express your teen the way your teen wants to, and not just expecting it to be in talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's just think about, for me, I'm someone where a lot of times I'm going to express myself with my clothing, right? And I also like singing. So that's how, as an adult, that's how I express myself, right? If I really am feeling like I just need a boost, I'll put on a fun necklace. I'll sing in the shower. What about you, Wanda?
How I like to do it is I actually love to dance. I turn on the radio and I just throw a personal dance party. And I actually love doing that, like with other adults and teens. It's like, let's just have a quick dance party. We're going to feel so much better.
Yeah.
It's an automatic boost.
It's just, let's regulate, right? We're regulating through rhythm, and we're getting our brainstem, getting that regulated, right? We're regulating, kind of just getting some energy out, expressing ourselves when there aren't words for it.
Yeah.
Love it. Personal dance party. I want to call me up next time. Okay.
I'm going to do it.
Ooh, what if you're really angry? What do you do?
This is one of my favorites. And because it feels a little, like they shouldn't be doing it, but they're doing it, is even like if it's an old book, here I say recycle bin. But if there's a chapter book that they're not reading, there's just something really cathartic about page by page, ripping a book, a magazine, anything. Also stomping on containers. And you're going to help them by like, I see you're really, really angry, and then even start ripping paper next to them and say, you want to rip some paper, but just having that available, and it would feel good for you too. If you're having one of those days, try it out. See what it feels like when you just go to town.
Whew. I had a nephew, and he'd gone through a lot of traumatic things, and we did this once. I just said, hey, let's just have kind of a moment. Like, let's just get into this. And he just ripped it into so many pieces, put it in a ball and threw it. And it felt good just to get it out. So cool. Number 7, these are some of our top tips. Co-regulate. So one of our top regulation tips is to co-regulate, then validate some more. Tell us what you mean by that, Wanda.
Yeah. So going back to the first slide that we were talking about, how our kids are regulating, is that less is more, and getting your body soft with them and looking at them in the eyes gently and using a really soft, slow speech is just really gonna show softness and empathy and slowing them down. Because usually anxiety is like this, right? We want to just slow everything down, and that's part of the mindfulness, but it's also just like, we're going to handle this together. And mirroring, remembering to mirror. I would say less is more, just being like, it's going to be okay. I see you're sad. Just being like with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing we've learned from trust-based relational intervention, I know you and I have both done some training in that, is that whenever someone's got a history of trauma, they're kind of in that brainstem, and they scan the environment and they look for threats, right? And so even if you just have a neutral face, like a child may perceive that as threatening, right? They'd say, you look scary. That person's scary. That person's threatening. Even just a slightly raised tone, like, hey, they'll be like, she yelled at me. Why are you yelling at me? And so we'll hear these things and you're like, I wasn't yelling and I didn't look scary, but the child may perceive it that way. So that's why it's important for us as adults to kind of give the extra effort to say, I'm intentionally looking non-threatening. I'm going to look with my kind eyes and my warm affect. Mm-hmm. So we have to put forth that little effort, because their perception may not be what's really happening, right? But they could be seeing that on your face if it's just neutral.
Especially with that overstimulated brain.
Mm-hmm. So when we say co-regulate, Sometimes we'll be like, you need to go take some breaths, right? They'll tell their kid, go take some breaths, go breathe. When someone's really dysregulated, they need co-regulation. They need you to do it with them. So Wanda, show us how this works.
So give me 5. And actually, like, using your finger as a visual is really helpful. And you're going to make sure that you're going to inhale through your nose. And then you're going to exhale out the mouth. And then inhale. And then exhale. It's great. Inhale. Exhale. And then out. Just showing them and modeling.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Do it with them. Do it with them. And then we said validate and validate some more. Yeah. So what that means is we're not jumping to problem solving, right? We did some regulating. Now we have to do the relating. Okay, we have to be in them, feeling with them, right? So we're going to breathe with them. We're going to relate. And it may sound something like this. Wanda, will you read the first line and then I'll do the second?
I hate doing classes on a computer. I'm so tired of this.
Yeah, it's hard to be on a computer.
It's just so stupid. I just miss my friends.
Yeah, you miss your friends. It's really hard. Ugh.
I don't even want to do it. I'm just so sick of it.
It's really tough to be motivated right now. This is hard.
Yeah, get me.
So that's just validating. Like, I'm not giving advice. I'm not problem solving. I'm just mirroring the statement and I'm validating the feeling, being like, whatever you feel, that's what you feel. It is what it is. I'm validating it, right? We may not understand it. We may get it or not. We can just say, that's really hard for you right now, right? You're feeling upset. You're feeling stressed. So just validate over and over, like more than you think you even need, especially teenagers. They need to hear the validation to the 10th level, right? So we just shared a lot with you, right? That was a lot. We'd like you to just add in the chat right now, what ideas shared so far, which would you want to try? Which are you thinking, hey, that's something I may want to incorporate, right? So we did 7 strategies so far. Please in the chat, jump in. And I'm going to stop share just for a second. Yeah. So do we have any kind of theme in the chat? Let's check it out. Oh, someone said that when their husband was a kid, he would take lavender extract to school to help him manage anxiety.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's just so simple, right? Some of these are just so simple, these strategies, right? I mean, it's just the little things. Yeah. So our next section we're going to talk about is what's called collaborative problem solving. So this is what comes up a lot of times when people have big feelings or big worries, right? So we're going to talk about that in a second. If you've got kind of like a common question that you're hearing a lot from your child, feel free to add that in the chat. Maybe something like, I'm scared about what school going to be like. I'm scared about online school. I'm scared about getting sick. I'm nervous about this. Like, if you've got kind of a worry, a big feeling, then post that in the chat. We kind of get a theme of like, what's stressing people out right now, right? It can also be something that you've got a big worry about, right? So we can post that. Wanda, what are you hearing from families? You know, what's on their minds?
What I'm hearing a lot from families is that kids are afraid to make the wrong decision, right? They want to see their friends. They're missing their friends. But they, people just don't know what decision to make. And so, having just kind of like managing their curiosity, while you're making your decisions, a lot of, it's going to be different. And also I believe being like really honest and truthful, it's like how to talk to my kid about what school's going to look like, how to have it as a discussion. I think listening to all of their concerns, because a lot of our kids and teens think school's going to be exactly like it was before spring break, which isn't the reality. And just being like really honest about what it will look like without, like, that's just what it's going to look like. What do you think? And having lots and lots of dialogue and discussion about it.
So helpful. So we're going to kind of go through this collaborative problem solving to talk about, when you're problem solving with your kid, what might this sound like, right? And this comes from Stuart Ablon. And this is, he does a lot of work alongside Bruce Perry, right? So before we get into that, this is just something I hear all the time from students. I don't know about you, Wanda, but they're like, hey, I tried all those things. Like, didn't work. I'm still stressed, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we like to use in counseling is something called a wellness scale, right? The key is we want to see tiny movements over time, right? Your child may not go from a 2 to an 8 in a day, although some kids, they are really swinging, right? That happens. So when we're kind of beginning that problem solving, a lot of times we'll start with just a relational check-in and we'll say, like, where are you at today on a 1 to 10, right? Some people use a FACES scale, but sometimes you can just ask 1 to 5, how are you? 1 to 10, how are you? Right now I'm a 7. I feel great, right? I feel good. So then the next question is, what could we do that could just get you a point? How do we get you from a 7 to an 8? How do we get you from a 3 to a 4? Right? So when we're working with our kiddos, we're not expecting a change overnight. We're just saying, is there something little that's in our control that we could do to just make a little change? Mm-hmm. And then the same thing goes for, wow, you're a 3. I wonder what's keeping you from being a 2. Wonder what's keeping you from being a 2. Why are you a 3? What's working? Right? So start to think, how can we get these small shifts? So that's part of that relating. We're starting to get into the problem solving. The key is when we practice these regulation skills, we may reduce the intensity, how strong our feelings are, or we may reduce the duration, how long your intense feelings last. And so we got to practice the regulation skills, even if we don't see a big change, even if it's just a half point, right? Wanda, I know you say that too. How can I get a half point?
Exactly. We're just going for a little bit better, right?
A little bit better. But by practicing these skills, you'll start to notice, wow, I still got really upset, but I didn't have a full-on meltdown, right? I still felt stressed for an hour, but normally it would have been half the day, right? So we'll still see the stress there. It just will be less intense, right? And that's because your brain's starting to get rewired. So that's why we got to have these little kind of baby steps, little increment jumps, right? One of the things we do when we start problem solving with kids is we talk about their brainstem. We're like, you got to be regulated, right? If you can regulate your brainstem, you're going to have less of an intense swing. So this is how we regulate the brainstem. We say, check your meds. Meds is an acronym and it's for regulation. And meds stands for mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep. So, I work with a lot of students that take psychiatric meds, and that's awesome, right? They're getting some help for that. But at the same time, I say, what about your other meds, right? How's your diet? How's your sleep? Are you moving? Let's check those meds. Sometimes what we'll notice is there's a pattern. People get upset every single time they don't sleep. Woo, big anxious day, right? So we're going to check the meds. So Wanda, I know you are highly skilled at this in your counseling practice. Tell us about this.
Yeah, one thing that I love doing with kids is having them make their own self-care kit, kind of engaging their mindfulness things that work for them on them. I love a scented lotion, and actually right now a scented hand sanitizer would be awesome too, is that self-nurturing, I love myself, and also having them learn what soothes and comforts them. A little piece of candy, a little note, a little squishy, a little Play-Doh. Sometimes I'll put aromatherapy in the mini Play-Dohs, and just like having them have that sensory stimulation that is comforting and reminds them even possibly a little bit of play, how to just relax and have a playful moment to self-soothe.
And this works for adults too, right? In order to co-regulate, that means I've got to be regulated as the adult, right? And so as a counselor, you know, we hear hard stuff all day. We're taking in hard stuff. So I actually have to take little breaks in between students I see, and I have to do a little regulation myself. So I have a little care corner, and this is what it looks like in an office I had, where it had a mindful movements and it had a tea station. And that was for me, where I'd go, gosh, I'm noticing I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling tight. I'll go, oh, I'm going to go to my care corner and I'm going to do stuff for me. Right. And so the kids can participate, but it was also for me. Right. So thinking about what's your customized care corner, how can you mindfully notice that you're feeling stressed and then do something to take care of yourself. Our next one is exercise. Whew. We got to move every day, people, especially when we're at home, moving every day. What they've shown, and Bruce Perry's done a lot of work on this right now with athletes, is that if you can have a relational experience, walking with someone, biking with someone, playing Frisbee with someone, that builds that connection like tenfold. And so we just, suddenly I feel so connected to this person because we did it together, right? The movement together. So that's so powerful. Move every day. Doesn't have to be super hardcore, just a little. What do you do for movement, Wanda? You said dancing.
Dancing, and then a morning walk, and then an evening walk. And that's one of the beautiful things about having a pet, is it motivates you just to, you know, be outside. But I'm a walker and a dancer.
And I love that you mentioned a pet, because that's relational too, right? The relationship can be with nature. It can be with the trees. I connected to them. It can be with my pet, or it can be with a person, right? A lot of ways to feel connected. The D in med stands for diet. So I also think drink water to regulate. Okay. When we drink water, it flushes the cortisol out of our system. So we get extra stress chemicals and this flushes it out. So it's like a free discharge. Drink the water. And then once again, relational routines, eating with someone, sharing food, that builds connection. It makes me feel like I'm relating to you, right? So if I've got a child that's stressed, I may bring them some cold water and a little snack. They may not want to eat it, but I'll just put it there. And I'm just building that connection. Some kids need food every 2 hours. Kids from hard places with trauma backgrounds, they actually sometimes don't have the same senses internally that other kids do based on their development. So they may not be able to tell if they're hungry or not, right? They're not getting that hunger sensation. So we have to prompt them with little snack reminders. This is a hard one. We're busy, but. And then finally, sleep. Whew. Wanda, what have you noticed about sleep working with kids? You work with, I know a wide range of kids. What have you noticed about sleep?
What I've noticed about sleep dysregulation is that it will make or break a kid during the academic year. If they're not getting enough sleep, I have kids who are just reading books really late at night or get hooked on their Netflix, series. It's, as soon as you can start noticing themselves and when they learn those cues, it's such a huge difference. The critical thing is having that good sleep hygiene. And, we know that when someone isn't sleeping, like they're just not recharging, refreshing their brains.
Totally. And we've got some resources in here that we can have sent out, healthy sleep tips and mindfulness for bedtime. These are things that'll help you if sleep is your main one where you go, I checked my meds and sleep is what's throwing me off. That can be a hard one to work on. So we've got some resources in there that you can do with your child. So check those out. We're going to send them through NAMI, and then they can send them out or post them as needed. Okay. So that's fun. Just a fun resource. And then, we've regulated some more. We've co-regulated. We've related, right? We're doing things with each other. Now we're going to problem solve, right? We're finally getting to the cortex, right? Regulate, relate. Now we're in the cortex. We're ready to problem solve. Here we go. When a student has an issue, you've got 3 things you can do as a parent or a caregiver or an adult. They come in with some skill deficits, right? They come in with the demands of the environment. So my skill deficit might be, it's hard for me to manage my emotions. The demand of the environment might be, you've got to log into Zoom 6 times a day to go to class. And then I'm thinking, I'm overwhelmed and I shut down. So as a parent, you could either do plan A and make them, you could do plan B and collaborate, or plan C and drop it. What they've seen to be the most relationship building and the most effective is plan B. So we're going to talk about, what does this sound like? What's it look like? So plan B, it always starts with empathy. And empathy sounds like noticing. So Wanda, somebody in there in the chat had concerns about, being lonely, like the child's being lonely, feeling lonely, right? Just feeling isolated, right? So what would a noticing or an observation sound like?
It would be like, I can see that you're really sad about not having your friends.
Yeah.
You could even be like, I'm noticing that you're really, really taking this hard, and that you're really worried about not getting to see them, and that you're even feeling lonely. You can even identify their feeling for them. Mm-hmm. That helps them trust their feelings too. So adding that on and just mirroring and just really feeling bad with them, that does stink. You do feel lonely, man.
Yeah. And notice how you're leaning in and you're making that eye contact with those caring eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is the problem definition. We need to clarify what the problem is. Sometimes we think we know, but then it's actually something different. So you may say something like, hey, I know you've been really feeling isolated because, you don't have a phone like everyone else. And your child may say, I don't care about the phone. I care that I can't visit my friends in person. Okay. So the issue is you can't visit your friends in person. Okay. So we clarify the problem. You're feeling lonely because you can't visit your friends in person. And then the next is, I wonder if there's a way that we can address that. What could we do? And that's where the problem solving comes in. So we want to empathize, figure out what the problem is in those words, and then we start to work towards solutions that work for both parties. The collaboration means it works for the parent and it works for the kid. Now, as a parent, you get to decide the health and safety boundaries for your child, right? If you say they're not going to visit in person, then that's a hard no. You're allowed to keep that stance, but you can still collaborate to problem solve to get that child's needs met when they're feeling lonely. So we're getting ready to problem solve. We're going to make sure that child's regulated, right? So we made sure that they were feeling calm. Maybe we got a little snack, a little water. We took a walk together. Then we validated our feelings. This is really hard. Now your child's calm and we're doing the reasoning, right? We're going to reassure them that you love them, but maybe there's a behavior that needs to get changed or behavior that needs to look different. Or maybe there's something that's different where it's just not going to happen, right? And you have to put a firm boundary. But the way we do that can make a big difference. If we just say, no, that's not happening, versus, I care about you, it's really hard, we're not going to get to visit in person. What else can we think of together where you could still feel connected to your friends? What can you come up with? So what kind of things do you think kids are coming up with right now, Wanda? We know this is happening all over the city. Kids are feeling disconnected. What are they doing to get through that loneliness?
What I've noticed is that they're gaming collaboratively. So for those kids who are online gamers, for those kids who aren't gamers, what I'm noticing is that they are Zooming each other or FaceTiming each other. But there is that sense that they're experiencing, of missing that. Sometimes their parents are allowing them to have a safe 6 feet sit outside, experience. But once again, that's a personal family decision. Mm-hmm. And so knowing what your limits are and keeping your family safe is always the priority.
Mm-hmm. And the key is we're going to have these problem solving conversations when the child's regulated, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we're problem solving, we empathize right here on the bottom right, you see empathize, and we clarify their concern. And then we say to our adult's concern, hey, I understand you really want to see your friends, but I'm concerned about your health. And then you notice there's a little arrow that goes back to empathy. That's so key. Hey, I know you're feeling down about missing your friends. I'm still worried about your health and safety, so we're not going to be able to do that. And I know that's really hard for you. I go right back to the empathy, right? And sometimes we stay in that empathy loop for a long time, right? I clarify your concern, I empathize, I share my side, I go back to the empathy, I stay in the empathy. And we'll stay in that loop for a while before we can actually get up, before students are ready to actually problem solve. They need that layers of validation. They need to be heard over and over again. Does this sound like a counseling conversation or what, Wanda, where you're stuck in the validation empathy loop?
Just keep going. What, and as an adult, what if you continually got validated, you know, how would that feel? How do you feel when someone's like, God, that's really hard. Raising a kid during COVID is hard. Wouldn't that, you're just like, yeah, thank you, it is. It feels hurt and being, you know, seen.
And to have people say, you're not being unreasonable for thinking this is hard, right? Your feelings are valid, right? A lot of times my students would say, gosh, you make it seem like I'm not crazy. And I'd be like, well, I would never call you that. And B, your feelings are valid. You're allowed to be upset by this, right? This is hard. Just showing that empathy, that compassion. So kind of our final quote for the day before, you know, we'll have a couple minutes for some questions is, comes from John Kabat-Zinn. This is actually a painting. It's a giant painting that I had in my office, an 8-foot tall painting. And it says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And I think this is what it's all about. How do we manage these waves? How are we going to surf these waves? How are we going to get through it together? What's our surfboard made of? Who's with us? Waves are coming. We're going to learn how to surf together. Yeah, I love that one.
Me too.
So we're going to do Q&A. We also have our contact info in this slide. Wanda, I know you've got an incredible community art therapy group. Incredible. I would highly recommend, I'm just giving a shout out to Wanda. I would highly recommend her art therapy teen process groups. All this is going to be available. We're going to make sure the slides are available to everyone. So I know some people in the chat have said, what's going on with the slides? We're going to make sure you get it all. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for any kind of last minute question, anything that's going on. We can answer that. Yeah, we've got some question or some comments about someone who's got a child who wants to snack constantly, right? That kind of chewing can be calming for some kids. So some kids maybe need some gum, right? That's something that helps with that kind of chewing, needing to chew to process. That actually is calming for a lot of kids.
And actually multiple pieces of gum. So not just a singular piece, but to like have 2 or 3. So it's an exaggerated chew is really calming.
Yeah. Okay. And then Christina or Karen, do we have any other questions that came in? Anything else you feel like we need to cover?
I don't think I saw anything else that was really major. I mean, honestly, you just covered so much, and I think you covered it so well that I think most of us were really just intently listening to everything that you were offering. And I know that part of the reason people were asking about the slides and wanting to know about that was really because this is the kind of stuff that, you know, getting a chance to sort of absorb again. And I know I was taking some note on stuff. And so that was really helpful. And I will take away the regulate, relate, and reason. And as always, I love the whole 5, you know, the whole hand thing with that. I love that always. But I don't think I'd heard you talk about the meds piece before. And that's just so basic and simple, but so important. So I feel like you covered a lot, and we're just so appreciative of you joining us again, especially in this time. We know that Not everybody was able to join us this evening. We certainly had folks that for many of them, this was their first day of school. And so we're so excited to be able to provide the recording of it as well as the slides to anyone who wasn't able to join us, as well as to everyone who was with us this evening. Thank you, as always, for all the wonderful work that you do, and for your continued support of the kids and the teachers and school professionals in the Austin Independent School District. We appreciate you.
We appreciate you. We love NAMI. I'm going to be at the NAMI walk on Team
Yes.
Jake, so I'll be there.
Awesome.
Ew,
Awesome.
yes, I'm super excited about being on the NAMI walk too.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you guys take care of yourself, as we know that you're going to be continuing to be really busy as this year takes off in the midst of a lot of unknowns, right? So these tools have been really helpful to us tonight. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Wanda. Take good care, everyone. Remember to join us in 2 weeks. We're going to have somebody talking specifically about DBT, about dialectical behavioral therapy. We're really excited to be providing that on the 27th at 11 a.m. Thanks so much. You guys have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.